What is Nvidia actually worth? You could look at their factories, their hardware, and their stuff, but some of their most valuable assets, like the patents on their chip architecture and the production processes that make them extraordinary, they actually don't appear anywhere on their balance sheet. And Nvidia is not an exception. This is now true for most successful companies. And today's episode is about what this means for you, whether you're building something new or running something that already exists. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I'm really enjoying the summer, but in a totally new way for me. So I'm kind of having my own reinvention. Usually at this time of year, as long-time listeners know, I'm in the south of France. And this year I'm not traveling because I decided that basically I just really don't want to get on a plane with a baby, which I'm sure other people in the plane on planes are very grateful for. So I'm in our family house, which has a massive garden. And I have discovered that I am really into gardening. Who knew? I'm a woman who's usually drinking rosé in Saint-Tropez in July, and now I'm getting as much or maybe even more pleasure from tidying up the garden. I don't understand what's going on. I'm very surprised. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I am into it. And now let us talk about Nvidia. So I read this article in the Chicago Booth Review, and for those of you who don't know, I'm an alumna of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. And I want to bring this article to your attention and then tell you what it means for you, whether you are a corporate innovator or whether you are a founder. And this article is called Nvidia's Most Valuable Asset is Not on Its Balance Sheet. And I've pasted the link in the show notes. And it's based on research from Stanford's John D. Kepler and Chicago Booth's Charles McClure and Christopher Stewart. So I'm going to tell you the most important part of their research from this article and then what it means for you. So the academics have found that companies today are generating more and more value from intangible assets. And those intangibles are things like customer data, technology, research and development, brand identity, and so on. Now, these intangibles now account for over half of the total value of acquired assets in mergers and acquisitions, up from about 1/3 in the early noughties. So I'll give you, if this all sounded like weird corporate speak, don't worry, just stick with this episode. You are going to understand it. I'm going to make it more and more simple for you. And this is what I found about Chicago Booth Review in general is that I often think like, if you don't have an MBA or a PhD or a degree in economics, can you understand what the articles mean? But anyway, leaving that aside. So what they have found is that customer data alone now accounts for 23% of acquired assets totaling 1.1 trillion. In other words, when big money is on the table, what buyers are actually paying for is stuff that you can't see. So it's not buildings, it's not machinery, but it's the brand, the data, the patent, the knowledge, the customer relationships, the institutional knowledge. And let's have a look at how they found this out. So the researchers looked at close to 21,000 mergers and acquisitions deals between 2002 and 2024, totaling approximately $15 trillion in deals. And the companies that they looked at included household names like Kraft Foods, LinkedIn, and Time Warner. And here's what they found. So they measured company productivity the traditional way. So buildings, machinery, and basically stuff that you can observe. And they got one picture. So when you look at all the kind of the traditional way of valuing a company, they got one picture. But then when they included intangible assets, more than 70% of companies moved into a completely different productivity tier. So essentially, more than 70% of companies were seen to be much more productive and thus much, much more valuable. And here's something that really actually shocked me. That intangible assets now account for 12% of company revenue compared to 14% of tangible assets. So basically, it just means that the stuff that you can't see accounts for almost the same as stuff that you can see, which is really, really interesting. And if you want to delve deeper into the research and look at some fun graphs, I mean, fun if you're a mega nerd like me, then go and read the article, which is in the show notes. So let's make this more concrete and understandable and not just like random, not just numbers. So this is where the Chicago Booth researcher Christopher McClure, he used Nvidia to make this kind of more obvious. So he says that some of Nvidia's most valuable assets are patents on chip architecture and the production processes that essentially make these chips extraordinarily efficient. I mean, we already probably know this. But what's interesting is that this thing, this super valuable thing, actually doesn't appear on their balance sheet. And so McClure's point is that when we don't account for these super important intangibles, we ended up crediting Nvidia's success to some sort of mysterious secret source, some sort of divine intervention. When actually, once you include the intangible inputs, the picture becomes much clearer. And here's what's super important for investing in startups and investing in innovation. So he says that this applies to R&D, to research and development. Because if a company is spending heavily on research that is not going to generate sales until next year or the year after, which happens especially in deep tech companies, but it was also happening at Amazon. Excluding R&D from productivity calculations makes the company look less productive than it actually is. And this actually reminds me of a lot of the stuff that Jeff Bezos was saying in his early shareholder letters when he was like, okay, we're not going to be profitable for ages because we're going to keep on reinvesting. And, he obviously got away with that and has done quite well. So, in other words, our standard ways of measuring companies are systematically misleading us in both directions. So some companies look more productive than they actually are. Others look less productive than they actually are. So you can have a company that has lots of tangible assets, but maybe they're not investing in R&D, and therefore they should not be valued as much as a company that is investing lots in R&D, that is going to be productive in the future, but basically has fewer assets, like fewer buildings. So basically, just remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not valuable. And it is very normal and very human to value stuff that is observable because, like, we're human beings. We're not valuation machines, right? So we see buildings, we see machinery, we look at cash in hand, and this is stuff that you can point to. And also, some economists would argue that, well, you could easily sell it. But what I want you to see from this episode, from this research, that some of the most valuable things that a company owns are going to be invisible. And this is especially important for listeners of this podcast because you want to learn about software companies. You want to learn about innovation in the age of AI. So software companies usually hold most of their value in stuff that you can't see and touch. And yes, this is changing for the massive companies in AI because they have data centers. But aside from that huge exception, when you're looking at a traditional software company, it's going to, like, intangible assets are going to be super, super important. And this is not this like soft argument about, oh, we have a great culture, we've got great vibes. No, this is literally where the money's going. Because when companies get acquired, buyers do due diligence, and they're not usually idiots. They see everything. They look at the tangibles and the intangibles, and they are paying a premium for the stuff that they can't see, for the brand, for the customers' relationships, for the institutional knowledge. So what does this mean for you? So I'm going to start with corporate innovators, and then I'm going to talk about the founders. So you're a corporate innovator. Look around you at your intangible assets and think about, how are they actually doing? Have you given them any love lately? Is your customer data a mess? What I often see is that customer data in companies is going to be sitting in 3 different systems that don't talk to each other. And it's really difficult to actually build anything, like to get any insights out of them, because you first got to clean it up. Which brings me to my next point. Do you actually have customer insights? How are you getting them? What do you know about your customers? What do you know about how they think, how they feel, what they need right now, and how they are using your stuff? Now let's talk about your brand. That's a huge intangible. When did your brand last get any real attention and investment? Are you just seeing it as this annoying thing that the CMO keeps on asking for more money for? So basically, don't think of these things as fluffy stuff that the marketing team wants, or a pet project from the chief innovation officer, because these are real assets. And like all real assets, they require time and money and effort to build and maintain so you can monetize them. And intangible assets, just like a building, they will decay if you don't invest in them, because a brand that is not tended to, it's going to lose relevance. Customer data that isn't updated, that isn't cleaned up, is useless, and relationships that aren't maintained go cold, as we all know from actually, not just customer relationships, but our real life, right? If you don't check in with your friends and you kind of let your friendships expire, it's going to be unpleasantly difficult to revive them. And the thing is, in many companies, CFOs are going to find it easier to approve budgets for something visible, like a new office, a new system, or a new hire. And this research is making the case for investing and in what cannot be seen. So if you're basically trying to shake the CEO down, the CFO down rather, for budget, send them this article. Say it came from Chicago Booth and Stanford. Like, these are institutions that CFOs usually respect. I actually sent this article to a CFO the moment I read it, because this particular CFO that I know, she is preparing to sell a really large retail company. And I want her to be able to argue for a higher valuation given all of the intangibles that this company has. And now, over to you. Ask yourself, if somebody were to acquire your division tomorrow, what intangible asset would they be paying for? If you can't answer that clearly, then that is the problem to solve first. And if you're thinking, this sounds interesting, I don't know where to get started, this kind of sounds complicated, well, here is your chance. Why don't you book a sample consulting session with me? I am still doing them. I'm doing them. I'm hopefully going to be doing them all over the summer. I'm not sure if I can keep it up over the summer, but essentially I'm doing a new coaching program where one of the things that we're doing is offering free consulting sessions. And if the stuff that you're hearing in this podcast, if that is bringing up questions for you and you're thinking, well, how do I apply this to the thing that I'm working on? Your chance to get my eyes on your issue for free, basically your chance is now. So grab it. The link to book is in the show notes, and it's a free consulting session with me. Okay, now let's talk about what this research means for founders. So what I have found is that founders often obsess over the product and ignore the intangible assets, which they actually should be building in parallel to building the product. And I have been talking about this in the last few episodes, as you will recall. So your audience, your brand, your proprietary insight into a customer problem, these are real assets that people pay money for. And now I have the evidence to prove it with graphs. So treat these assets like assets that people pay money for. What does this actually mean? So basically build them deliberately from day one, not as a marketing afterthought after your product is done. And honestly, I do love building great product. I do love helping our clients create products that users love. I really, really enjoy doing that. But I have also seen that if this is all you focus on, if you only focus on the product and ignore building a warm audience and a brand, and you don't codify your proprietary insight, then you will have a great product, but you won't have a valuable company. And surely the valuable company, that is the point. That's why you're working so hard, right? Because when it comes to raising money or to selling, serious buyers and investors are actually evaluating the product, i.e. the tangibles, and also the aforementioned intangibles. So the founders who understand this, and the founders who understand this early, are the ones who arrive at a fundraise or at a sale with something that can't be replicated. So not just a product, but actually a business. So if you're a founder who's thinking, yeah, this sounds good, I don't know how to get started, I don't know really what I'm supposed to do, although I am agreeing with Sophia's argument, then book your sample consulting session. I don't know if I'll be able to keep them up for much longer. By the way, for the people who have booked, I've loved talking to you. I am really looking forward to speaking to those of you who are already in my calendar. Anna, I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you on our consulting session. So if you haven't booked yours yet, do so now. And now let's summarize what we learned today. Some of your most valuable assets in your company are not going to appear on a spreadsheet. This means that your company and your efforts may be misunderstood and undervalued, and this would suck. You now have research from Stanford and the University of Chicago to prove that actually intangible assets, when you include them in evaluation, are going to make your company much more valuable. What this means for you is that you need to focus on the intangible assets to essentially make sure that your company or your division are more valuable. This episode has given you a few ideas on how you can do that. And if you want to delve deeper, then book a sample consulting session with me. And now, my dear smart person, if you enjoyed this episode and found it useful, which I assume you did, because you're still listening. So make sure to leave this show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast, because your reviews leave me in a very good mood, an even better mood than gardening. Okay, on that note, have a wonderful day, and I shall be back in your delightful smart ears next week. Ciao.